It's 8:15 Eastern Time, the only time zone that isn't trying to circumvent the NBA salary cap. That means it's time for C2C Live. That's Matt Bruening. I'm Austin Nace. On a panicky version of tonight's show, which teams can bounce back from their week one losses the best? What's the future looking like in Tuscaloosa? And UNC pantsed on national television. All that and more right after the stinger. I didn't forget this week. Was that better?
That was. I'm very proud of you. I was a little bit worried when you kept going there in the intro that we weren't going to get it again, and I was going to freak out.
You would have really lost it this week after last week. Last week was a warning shot. This week would have been the full effect. Yeah. Welcome into C2C Live, guys. Brought to you by CampusToCanton.com. Before we get into the show here, if you're joining us live, can you like and subscribe? All the good stuff that we always ask you to do every single week. And if you're listening on podcast feed somewhere, leave us a 5-star review. Let us know what you think of the show. And use some of our promo codes out there, folks. Promo code Campus2Canton gets you 15% off over at Home Field Apparel. And Underdog, use promo code C2C for a deposit match up to $250. And by the way, we went 8 for 9 on our Underdog plays this week, so we'll win you some money over there. We promise. All right, Matt. Let's get into it. A busy week one of college football here. Let's start with Alabama. It's probably what everybody's starting with this week. Probably one of the less sexy losses that Alabama has suffered over the past 2 decades, and even since Kalen DeBoer has gotten there, they've had some rough ones, but this one felt different. I don't know how else to say it. Losing to Florida State by 2 touchdowns this weekend, and it's not like Florida State was amazing. That's kind of the thing. It's not like I thought they really played out of their mind, that they were doing anything revolutionary. Alabama just wasn't very good. So I mean, I guess we'll start with that. I mean, is this the beginning of the end, we'll say, for Kalen DeBoer there at Alabama and his time as the head coach?
I find it hard not to at least think so. It's funny because I would say probably about 3 years ago now. There used to be 4 of us on this show. For those of you, the non-initiated or whatever it is that people say, it used to be Chris Moxley, Austin Nace, Felix, and myself. And if I'm remembering correctly, Felix and myself argued that the Bama dynasty was over. And that was before Saban
side,
had left.
Or is this?
I was on Felix's side.
Changing
history? No, I was on Felix's side. On Felix's side. Now I didn't go as far as Felix went with it, but I did think that it was coming to a close. And I was actually talking to an Alabama fan about that today, and it's interesting because I think Shane Gillis kind of hinted at this. I think it was during the playoffs last year, whenever he was on the panel for like Notre Dame and talking about the SEC paying players and everything. And the Alabama fan that I was talking to today said that he was like, Alabama's finally gotten hit with the great equalizer, and that's NIL. Which I found interesting that Alabama fans, at least that one, I don't want to speak for all fans, thinks that. But I do. And I don't think that it's actually because of NIL. I think it's because Kalen DeBoer, and granted, he hasn't been there long enough, I think, for this to really affect him. But what is the one thing Kalen DeBoer is not known for? Can you tell me? Because, I mean, we've talked about it before. All of us have. And at least the 4 of us when we've been on this show. He does not recruit well at all. I think, and granted, you could say he was at Washington, Fresno State, fine. He was not bringing in classes worthy of Washington, or Fresno State was probably fine. I don't remember exactly what it was. But last year, his class wasn't compared to, I guess, Saban, which is great. I do think that he is a great developer of talent. I do think that he, specifically when it comes to the offense, is a very good coach. I don't know that we're seeing the offense be the problem. And I also think some of it is, again, this is me just talking myself up here. Ty Simpson. I just don't think that he is a good enough quarterback for what that team needs overall. With all that being together, I just don't know that they give him 3 or 4 years to figure this out. I really don't, because Saban's Saban's final year, I can't remember. They made the playoffs, didn't they? In his final year, they just got beat in the first round by Michigan, right? That was his final year.
Yeah, that would have been.
So, I mean, like he still made it to the playoffs. They did not lose a ton. They did not.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. They ended up not losing really a ton because we thought they would too. If I remember correctly, we did that Michigan show and then Nick Saban was out, and all of a sudden it was like, oh well, 30 days, right? And they thought Ryan Williams is going to enter the portal. Jalen Milton, like we thought a bunch of players were going to go, and then everybody stayed. And yet it's not been good. Like, sure, they've had some good wins, and they've kept a certain standard for Alabama, but you shouldn't have lost to Florida State this past week. You shouldn't have lost to Oklahoma. I can't remember. You should definitely not have lost to Vanderbilt. Like, that's just not a team that Saban would have lost to or that should have lost to. Even in those games where they struggled, USF, that first year with Jalen Milroe as their starting quarterback, Saban and that team found a way. And for whatever reason, they're not doing that with Kalen DeBoer. And I think fair or unfair to him, and I would probably lean more toward unfair. Unfortunately, Nick Saban set a bar that Alabama fans are expecting now moving forward. And again, whether that's fair or unfair, you can argue that, but I do think that his time is possibly limited at Alabama.
I think there's a couple things there. And in fairness, Alabama's recruiting class last year was third in the country. It was good.
It really?
Yeah.
We're just not being that high.
I don't think we're ever going to see these like mega classes anymore. The stuff's going to get spread around a little bit more just because of the money. I mean, we just saw Tristan Keys go to Tennessee when he had no business doing that because he's getting paid money. And quite frankly, we just saw Bryce Underwood do it with Michigan. So like it's going to spread some of the stuff around a little bit more. I think they've been on par. What I do think it takes, it's like probably an art and not a science is, and I think it's the part of why Nick Saban left that we don't talk about. Like he had mentioned Saban when he retired that he didn't want to have to put up with kids. It wasn't like the kids making money. It was the fact that there was so little actually tying them to the program that they could continue to ask for more money at any given time. And they were kind of at the mercy of whatever, they're pretty much at the mercy of whoever's around the kid and what they're whispering in their ear at any given time. I think that's kind of what Saban had said. But I think the other part of it is I think it's really hard to figure out ahead of time which kids are going to do that / which kids, once they get the money, are going to kind of not take things as seriously anymore. I think that's probably going to be one of the big differentiators when it comes to recruiting over the past couple of years. And prior to the NIL stuff, the stuff that you had to watch out for were just like knucklehead kids. And that part, I think, was relatively easy. The year that Texas A&M brought in that historic recruiting class, like people at the time who were close to recruiting were like, these are all dudes that nobody else wanted to touch because they're all idiots. And we saw like all of them leave the program. Basically, none of them stuck around that. So I think that's part of what's going on there now. I don't know that they've, over the past couple of years, brought in guys who are able to withstand the temptations of whatever once they have a little bit of money. I do think that's part of it. I think that's taken away a little bit of the edge of Alabama. And then you can talk about, DeBoer's not the scary guy that Saban was and all that kind of stuff. But he's not as intense, blah, 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 blah. But I do think that's a big part of it. Because, you've seen the clips. I'm sure anybody who's watching has seen the clips of these guys, numerous clips of guys jogging on the backside of plays when they could have made an impact. Just, dudes getting physically dominated all over the field, despite the fact that from a size perspective, Alabama was actually the bigger team this week.
Yeah.
Like Florida State, I think I saw that they have 2 defensive linemen over 300 pounds, and Alabama has a top 5 in terms of size offensive line in the country, I believe. So no reason for that kind of stuff to be happening in this kind of situation. So I do think it's going to be a little bit of a wake-up call this week. We'll see how they respond. I mean, this week's a cupcake matchup, so, we're not going to get a good feel. What's their next difficult game?
I don't know. I was just about to pull up their schedule. So
Georgia.
Georgia.
Wisconsin.
Oh, yeah, it's in like week 3, right? Week 4, Georgia?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll find out more there, I think. So,
yeah. Yeah, because I don't think Wisconsin's going to be that tough. I mean, Billy Edwards out. They're probably starting Danny O'Neal.
Danny O'Neal.
I don't. I mean, look, I like Danny O'Neal when he was at San Diego. I don't know that he's Wisconsin level quarterback. So yeah, and it's in Tuscaloosa. So yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you on what you said about that. What's the? I guess the scary part and I don't know if this was. There were reports, and I've seen videos of like the Bama players like recording TikTok videos and dancing and everything after the loss to Florida State the other day, which is like just not something I think you would have ever seen in the Saban era. And again, I'm not trying to say that in a way of like Kalen DeBoer's not a good coach. In my opinion, you don't get to a national championship and be as successful as you are if you're not a good coach. He's just different than Saban. And again, most coaches are, but I do think it takes a lot of, who's trying to think of someone else besides Ohio State, because Georgia wasn't super successful when Kirby took over, right? Like they were good, but they weren't like consistently what Kirby's kind of turned them into, or am I misremembering?
They've been pretty good because Richt was the guy before him, and it was always like they would lose a game in like week 10 to like Kentucky or something that would derail like every year. It was like always one stupid loss. They just couldn't they couldn't string it together for a whole year.
But like, so with that though, like with Richt and him moving on and then Kirby coming, like he's improved that, right? And I think you could say, despite, there was a one dip year for Ohio State when, why can I not remember his name now? Jim Tressel left. They had Luke Fickell. Then Urban Meyer comes in, maintained that. And then for the most part, Ryan Day has done the same outside of losing to Michigan, but he's gotten them in the playoffs. They've been right there in the playoff discussion every single year. So like, you can't say it's not possible. And I think even if you were talking about Kalen DeBoer in a way of like, if they had only lost, say, 2 games last year, I still don't think we would have been talking about him in a way of like possibly not being at Alabama long-term. It's the losses that he's had and how bad they've been. Again, they had no business losing to Vanderbilt or Oklahoma last year.
Michigan. In that bowl game, they were a much better. Michigan was awful last year.
I agree, but like I forgot about that bowl game. I was just thinking regular season. That was really bad because weren't they still starting Tuttle at quarterback? But still.
Yeah, they had Milroe. Like, Bama had a lot of the guys playing that game. It's not like nobody played.
There's just no – and this one, too, like, for it to at least look the way that it did, too. Like, cool, if it had been something like I don't even want to say fluke play, like whatever. And Ty Simpson throws an interception on the final drive and Florida State's able to kick a game-winning field goal or something. But, like, in my opinion, when I watched the game, like I thought Florida State was by far the better team on the field the entire game. And I'm just like, I don't understand that at all. Like there's no reason a team that was 2-10 last year should be bossing Alabama up and down the field, home field or not, should not matter. So yeah, it was, I just didn't understand it. Still don't.
With no shade to some of the guys that Florida State brought in, but like there's no real significant improvements from the portal last year. Like, you could make the argument because Florida State's QB situation was so bad last year that like anybody with a pulse would have been in, and that's worth a couple wins or whatever. I don't think any of us think of Castellanos as some sort of game breaking college quarterback. He's good for his role, but nothing crazy. So it's gonna be interesting to watch, but for sure there over the next few weeks because there's some difficult games there. I mean, their next 5, Louisiana Monroe this week again, and then Wisconsin, then they have a bye, and then it's Georgia, Vanderbilt, and Missouri. So some games in there that should be gimmies, but I think Florida State probably should have been a gimme too, and it wasn't.
Yeah. Since we are a week into this now, I know that you and Colin less so than you, have been firmly on the we will not see Keelan Russell at all this year. Did that at all change for you in watching that game against Florida State?
Well, that's one of the points I have on here. I kind of wrote, what does this loss mean for? And I wrote down a bunch of things. So we can talk Keelan Russell. I don't agree with you on the Ty Simpson thing. And not that I think Ty Simpson's awesome.
Yeah.
I thought he was good. They can't run the ball at all. There's no threat of it. They literally, like their ends and stuff, could just pin their ears back and aim for that spot 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage because they knew that there was no rush threat and there was nothing to be worried about on that side of things. And yeah, when he was flush out of the pocket, he wasn't amazing, but he made no big mistakes at all. No bad throws. There were one or two that maybe he'd want back, but like really on the grand scheme of things, it's not like he had like a guy running wide open 30 yards downfield and missed it or something like that. I thought Simpson was, you know, if I had to give him a grade out of 10 in this game, I'd probably give him a 6. And I think that's more than fine, you know. And it's basically his first start. I don't think that Keelan Russell would have done better.
I don't know that Russell would have done better either, but yeah, fine is great at Marshall, at Akron, at Wisconsin, Iowa, Purdue, Cal. I mean, we can just keep going down the list. Fine is not okay for Alabama.
I give him a 7. I'll give him a 7.
I disagree with that. I don't think he was a 7. I think he was fine. I think it's a fair way to put it. I don't think my biggest issue with the player like Ty Simpson is, and maybe I'm holding some priors here on what he was coming out of high school, but he was this player who could create out of structure. And there were those moments in that game where he could have done that and he didn't. And I don't know if that's DeBoer. You know, we've talked about that in the past with Ryan Day, right? Like we know Ryan Day is a guy who does not like those gunslinger quarterbacks. He's very much play within my system. Don't turn the ball over. Maybe that's what Kalen DeBoer was doing with Ty Simpson. I find that hard to believe with the quarterbacks that he's had there. Not specifically in Alabama, but like the quarterbacks he's had through his tenure and then the gamers he's had in Penix and Jake Haener. But I do not think that he was that good. And I mean, there's a realistic shot. I mean, you just mentioned, yeah, sure. Those games are gimmies. I think they probably do beat ULM. They probably beat Wisconsin. I don't think they beat Georgia unless they are just completely different team. I would very much think Georgia's going to win that game. What happens if they lose to Vanderbilt again? What happens if they lose to someone else in the SEC? Like at that point, you're likely out of the playoffs. We saw last year, it's very hard to get in 12 team, even with 3 losses. So at that point, are you just going to keep rolling Ty Simpson if he's not the guy who's really doing anything for you? Because again, sure, different competition, but Jake Haener most games was better than fine for him during Fresno State. And again, I get it, better competition. Oh, Florida State's that much better than some of the teams they played at Fresno State, but that's kind of my big thing here.
Yeah, and Martin says he thinks Ty Simpson is the Kelly Bryant to Keelan Russell's Trevor Lawrence. I don't think Russell's Lawrence, and I think the team situations are a little bit different. I get everybody wants to see Russell out there, and I think Russell's going to be more than good. But Here's the thing about Russell that we also have to remember that we don't know where he's at right now. His twin sister died this offseason. Twin sister. I don't know that we know exactly where he's at right now, how he's taking that, all of that kind of stuff. On top of the throwing a true freshman out there in the SEC with the team that was letting them tee off on Ty Simpson this week. I don't know that that's necessarily a great strategy either. There's no run game. The lack of run game is going to be a killer for them this year. I don't know what they've been doing recruiting some of these running backs over the past few cycles that they have Jam Miller and then nothing.
Wow. Or just don't let Justice Haynes go. I mean, like they could have fought harder to keep him, but well, the one thing I will say about that, I don't necessarily disagree with Martin. I would not say that I didn't really have a grade on Trevor Lawrence, but I imagine I probably would have had him graded higher than Russell, just based on what he did in high school. I would find it very hard to believe they go to Russell before or during the Georgia game. Because that, I think, is straight malpractice. I don't think you send, arguably Georgia's one of the national championship contenders. I don't think you send a true freshman out there against that team unless Simpson gets hurt. But again, I think if they lose that game, and again, if they lose again, like I said, if they I think you said they play Vanderbilt after Georgia. If they lose again to Vanderbilt at that point, clearly, I don't think you can sit there and say Ty Simpson is not an issue for this team. At that point, I think why not just make the pivot? I think, again, I've said before, for all offseason, I think we see Keelan Russell early. I still think that's going to happen because, again, whether he was bad or not, he didn't do, in my opinion, what needed to be done to win a game, and you have to have a quarterback like that for Alabama because those SEC games, again, they lost to Vanderbilt last year. Like, you have to have a guy who's going to, whether it is a legitimate game-changing quarterback, like we've mentioned Trevor Lawrence, what CJ Stroud, in my opinion, was able to do for Ohio State at times, even though it was never really able to win the big game in that aspect. you've got to be able to kind of raise the tide around you a little bit, raise all the ships around you. And I just don't see that out of Simpson. And maybe that's completely unfair because it was one game. But I think based on the competition, and it was his first game, like I saw true freshmen play better than him this week. True freshmen play better than what I saw out of Ty Simpson, who's been there for 3 years. Granted, I get it was his first start. It's the second year in Kalen DeBoer's offense. He's been there for 3 years, and that's the best you can give me. I'm sorry, but to me, that's just not good enough. And at that point, if I'm a head coach, yeah, I'm going to the true freshman because I think there's just more upside.
I think that's technically his second start, not to hit you with the actually. But that last one, yeah, it doesn't really count. It just doesn't really count. I mean, that USF game, that was weird on
yeah. Well, I was talking about it under Kalen DeBoer. That was his first start. And again, like, it's just he reminds me so much of like, I do think he's a little bit more talented than the player that I'm about to mention, but like, it's just Devin Brown for me. Like, I just don't think there's anything there. He's not it. And at that point, why not? Why not just go and see what you've got? Even if it's not Keelan Russell, you really want to go to Austin Mack, go to Austin Mack. But you've got to do something to shake this team up, especially if they lose again. They're going to lose to Georgia. I'd be very surprised if they don't.
And I did see that, I believe it was Ari Wasserman, who mentioned on a show today that the way that DeBoer's buyout is structured is that they basically pay him like the balance, a weekly sum over the next 6 or 7 years. So it's not like they have to pay him $60 million up front. I'm sure they don't want to pay him $60 million to do nothing, but there is that. So that's crazy to me that they gave him that level of a.
I mean, he was a very hot name at the time. I think he's got to lose like 4 or 5 games this year for it to get to that possibility. I think if they lose to Georgia, sure, there'll be more and more Alabama fans talking about it. But again, I'm trying to think of what guys like Day, because Lanning really didn't get the monkey off his back until last year in winning that Ohio State game and the Big Ten championship. Like, I do think you have to give these coaches a little bit of time. And if you're really going to, if he goes out there and loses to Georgia or doesn't make the playoff again this year and they just flat out fire him, there is a part of me that thinks that's a little bit of a mistake, but I do think it's a little unfair to hold him to what did Saban do that over 20 years? I don't know that he was that successful at the beginning of his Alabama tenure. And I mean, we're probably, at least in our lifetimes, never going to see that again, what he did with Alabama, what Saban did with Alabama. So, like, I do think you got to give DeBoer a little bit of time, because that's the other question, right? Like, I remember bringing this up with Ohio State fans all the time. Who are you going to go get? Who are you going to go get that's better than Ryan Day?
I think
there's going to go get.
I think there's an obvious answer for Alabama.
Go ahead.
As who they should have hired the last time.
Dan Lanning?
It's Kiffin.
Oh, no, I disagree.
I think they should have hired Kiffin.
I like Kiffin. I do not think Kiffin would succeed at Alabama either. But I don't know. Maybe he knows him better. He's been there before, so maybe I'm wrong.
It's who I would hire. I've seen the betting odds for who it would be. Some really stupid names on the list. So the betting odds that I saw had Tommy Rees as the top one, which would just be like, that would be, so for anybody, we've talked a little bit of soccer on this show recently. So Manchester United had a head coach there for 30 something years.
Yes, Sir Alex. Yeah.
And then he left. He tried to handpick a successor and they kind of poo-pooed him a little bit.
No, they hired Moyes.
Oh, that's right. They did hire Moyes at first,
but they didn't give him any time.
They didn't give him any time, and Moyes was not the original hand-picked guy.
Yeah,
and so then that did not work, and then they've made like stupid hire after stupid hire after stupid hire. Subsequently, it's just like Tommy Rees would just be like the stupidest hire ever.
I agree. I don't disagree.
He's not even a good offensive coordinator, and you want him to be your head coach when he's never had any head coaching experience. Feels like pretty baffling to me. Gruden's name was being thrown around. That will never happen. God, there's some names floating around that'll never happen. I think it's Kiffin.
Maybe. I mean, well, yeah. How I can tell you that Gruden would not work out is because we've already seen another NFL coach come into college football and try and bring the NFL mindset into college football, and it did not really work out for him on Monday night, did it?
Well, that's a great segue, Matthew, into our next talking point here. So thank you for that, man. What a pro's pro here. Yeah, we did see a former pro coach in the college ranks this week, and yeah, it did not go well for UNC. And again, this TCU game, I think it made worse by the fact that it was the standalone Monday night game, so everybody and their brother was watching it. I mean, the first drive happened for UNC, and they had that real nice scripted drive, and they drove right down the field. And the stupid tweets that exist post that drive, pre-rest of game, like I think you could just open a museum and the walls are decorated by those tweets in frames. Just chef's kiss, amazing. We argued about this earlier in the offseason. I don't remember where you were on it, Matt.
I was on the current wrong side.
Okay, because it's funny because
that game
I was on the current right side, and then I had softened my stance a little bit. I thought the floor would be really, really nice because, like, yes, college offenses can do some different things, and so playing defense is a little different. But I really did think, like, the worst case scenario is that he is just able to, like, confuse quarterbacks all season. The wins they scrape out are like 16-14, and it's like it's ugly, but they win 7 or 8 games. It's kind of where I thought they might fall into, right around, because I think their win total was 7.5. I said, they'll get right around that win total. And I'm regretting softening that stance that I said initially, where like he has no recruiting experience, he has no, putting together a college staff, dealing with all the NIL and type stuff, and all the people they brought in around him are also not experienced at any of that stuff. I don't know. I don't know how I got suckered into thinking this would be at least okay. This is going to be absolute train wreck. I don't think he's going to last more than a season there. I mean, I don't know. What we can talk about this generally and just poke and prod at it. I mean, what? Yeah. There was nothing encouraging out of this game at all, really. It's for me. I mean, I guess maybe Max Johnson, but I think this was that TCU was already up by 40 and we're kind of just hanging out type deal. Personally,
yeah, I mean, I sure, if you want to put some kind of bright light on it, if you want to give it to Max Johnson, that's fine. It is bad. He
almost lost his leg, Matthew.
I'm aware, and I'm happy that he was able to make it back out on the field. But I even think he was probably sitting on the sideline when Bill Belichick was like, "Hey, do you want to go out there?" He's like, "No,
really.
Yeah, no, I'm good. Thanks." Jordan, get your boy. That's what Max Johnson was doing. Now I don't know. I was very much, I was hesitant on like saying it was going to be good, but I did end up leaning toward like, I think Bill Belichick's going to be able to keep them like relevant. I don't think I ever said they were going to make the playoffs or anything, but I did think it was going to be good. So far, it has not been. But I will also say a lot like we talked about, me and you were both on Back to Debbie with Mike that we recorded the other night. And I kind of kept saying for some players, like, I'm not going to judge too quickly. Don't get me wrong, that was a really bad game. But I do think that TCU is the much better team, and I felt like I said that when I previewed the game for the tailgate as well. Like, I didn't expect it to be that bad, but I think that was one of those things where I think someone put it in our Slack channel. Gio Lopez is like a genius for finding a way to get that kind of paycheck from UNC and in the transfer. And a lot of us said we did not think it was going to work out. I think that's more just Gio Lopez not being that good at all, if you could even say good, and why UNC struggled that much. I think if they make a move, whether it's to Max Johnson, whether it's to Bryce Baker at some point, I think that Bill will get it turned around. I don't disagree with what you just said. I think it's probably fairly fair to say the under, but the one thing I think that's in their favor, they have a really weak schedule. So, like, if they are able to kind of find ways to be a little bit more grittier on defense and everything like you were just talking about, maybe they can get close to that 7-win mark. But, yeah, if you're really looking at it from that, I'm a little worried about UNC, but I think that he'll be fine. I think he'll get it figured out. There was actually a lot more egregious things in that game than I think the actual game. So, I'm not super worried about it.
I don't think there was a single positive you could take away from that game if you're UNC.
No, yeah, there is. We are horrible, but there, what's the only way to go is up from here, right? That's you just kind of, we sucked, and it is what it is, and you got to find a way to keep on moving forward. I think that I would find it. I'm gonna pull their schedule up because I know it's not great. I would find it very hard to believe that they
weak.
lose like that again. I think that might have been. Well, I think they get Clemson, so they'll probably lose like that to Clemson. But I find it very hard to believe that they'll get waxed like that every single week. I think that they will find a way to kind of somewhat turn around, at least be somewhat competent. I mean, they get Charlotte, Richmond, UCF might actually be a little bit of a challenge for them with what it looked like the other night. But no, I don't want to buy tickets for the UNC.
I mean, Syracuse.
I mean, I don't know. I watched a lot of that Syracuse Tennessee game. Like Shuri and Jelly looked fine in the second half, but I don't know that like I would. I mean, I'd probably pick Syracuse to like be favorites, but I don't know that I'd be like super thrilled with like, or I wouldn't bet a decent amount of money that mattered to me that Syracuse would beat them.
I mean, NC State. I think Duke might hang like 40 on them. I mean, I think they didn't. TCU. We like Josh Hoover.
Yes, yeah,
like quite a bit. And, I think they have a pretty solid stable of wide receivers there. There's no stud, like the fact that they were able to just move the ball at will any way they wanted. I don't know. I don't know how that gets better. I don't know. We shall see.
Martin says, for all the Keelan Russell tuck, Bryce Baker should be on the field as soon as possible in Chapel Hill. I think Gio is going to have a short hook. I don't think Bill cares. So we might see it. The only other thing, I don't know. I actually think I kind of disagree here with Colin. Colin says in the chat, the positive, they were able to lock down McAllister. I don't think McAllister was the one. I think it was Dwyer. They did not lock him down at all. So I don't sure, nobody else on the team did much, but Dwyer destroyed that defense. So
yeah, I that's going to be an interesting one to monitor over the next couple of weeks. I'm going to feel so vindicated if this ends up being the case, because I've been very firmly on the McAllister just isn't good train over the past couple of years, really. So
can I attempt to get us canceled really quick?
Oh no. Okay.
It's up to you. I can skip past this topic. It involves the game.
His girlfriend.
Oh no, whatever. It was definitely weird that she was on the field. I don't really care. Whatever. Bill's whatever. We're not gonna go there. I'm not gonna say anything about Bill and his girlfriend. I am sick and tired of this dog crap. And I love dogs.
Oh, dude, I've been on that for like a year at least. I said stuff in the Campus to Canton Slack weekly last year.
I turned the game off after the third quarter, so I didn't see any of that stuff happen. And then the justifying it of being like, oh, well, do you know how hard it is to call a game when the game's that bad? It's your job, dude. What do you mean it's hard? And you're going to go put your dog on the headset and put him on the clicker? I'm sorry. I can't.
This dude has an endless supply of dogs, man. It's an endless supply. The one dog dies, and we've got... I'm not even sure. 10 point halftime. I'm not sure the dog actually died. This one looks the exact same as the other one. I don't, it could be the same dog for all we know.
I'm just, I was watching a bunch of that discourse on X Tuesday morning when I was saying all this stuff, and I was just like, I can't. This is just why they let this keep happening. I don't know. I get it, I guess, because they get all the dog lovers and everybody else, but I'm just like this.
There's no way that people are turning on that game to say, I hope I see Kirk Herbstreit's dog tonight.
No. I can't remember who actually said this, but it was a very prominent person. It might have been... Dang, I can't remember who it was now. I saw it on X. I might have bookmarked it. I'll have to go find it. Talking about how, like, why is it that, like, they barely let anybody on these fields for all this stuff, but they let the dude's dog just wherever it wants to go. Like it's some super VIP. I don't get it. It annoys the crap out of me, but maybe that's sour grapes, man. I'm just jealous of the dog that it gets to do things that I want to do. I don't know, but it's just, to me, it makes no sense. I hate it. I hate that they keep bringing it up. I hate that it keeps happening.
I did enjoy them talking about who had poison ivy. Did you watch like most of the game? In the second half, at some point they were talking about somebody on I forget which team it was. One of them in fall camp had poison ivy, and I guess poison ivy can spread, which I didn't know. I can't get poison ivy. Like I've never. I don't know. So. They were saying that somebody on one of the two teams showed at the camp with like really bad poison ivy, and they put him in like a beekeeper suit, to like play and practice so that they could like do the tackling and the contact stuff. That was a lot of fun. They could have talked about more stuff like that as opposed to.
I don't see how. Look, you're supposed to be. I mean, look. Here's the thing. Like, I actually do think Reese is an incredible professional. At the end of the day, I do think Kirk is as well. I don't want to slight either one of them.
He's sitting back here. Should we bring him on? I've got him.
We should let him defend himself here in a minute. He seems pretty upset. He's been. I've seen some explicit.
Nah, he's not even listening. He's playing with the dog.
That's true, actually. Yeah, you got a good point there. I was trying, they're both professionals and they're very good at what they do. I don't want to pretend like they're not, but like for that to be the excuse, I think is really kind of what just set me off. It's like, well, you know how hard it is. I'm like, dude, I know you guys interview these coaches, these players, all this stuff beforehand. Don't tell me you don't have a bunch of stuff, or just talk about the game. You can reiterate what's going on. Yeah, you can talk about. God, dude, all you guys love to talk about who's in and who's out as soon as week one's over with. Start talking about the playoff picture for all we care. No, nobody cares. It was infuriating, but it is what it is. We're going to move on now. And good luck to, I forgot what the dog's name is now. Is it Peter? I'm actually not. I will show you. He probably won't come over because he hears me yelling, but I hate cats. I love dogs. I love my dog. It's unnecessary and it's just ridiculous in my opinion, but sorry to disappoint Evan.
I am a cat guy, for the record. So,
no.
God willing, I will never own a dog in my adult life. Fingers crossed.
You're missing out there, buddy. But, anyways,
I don't want something that actively seeks attention.
You know what, Martin? I will. I'll get him over here in a minute. We'll put it on. He's not going to come over here. That dog is about as lazy as I am. So. He's laying in his bed right now. I promise.
They say dogs and their owners take after each other. So,
dude, I wish. Oh, there he is right now. Cap, come here. Come here. We're going to get him on the show. Come here. Come on. Come here. I don't know that he'll actually jump up here. Come here. Come here.
Is this a big dog? I'm not going to lie. I didn't know you had a dog until right now.
Come here. He's scared of he's a mastiff.
I didn't know that.
Come here.
Man, learning stuff about Matthew today. All right. Well, while Matt tries to corral his dog,
if they can get him to come here
to get him on the show.
Thank you.
He's
walking away. No, I'm not letting you outside right now. Sorry. Continue. Sorry. Go ahead.
No. I'm interrupting your time with your dog, Matthew. I'm sorry that I did that to you. 3 playoff teams or playoff contenders lost to other playoff contenders this weekend. Notre Dame losing to Miami, Clemson losing to LSU, and Texas losing to Ohio State. Matt, of the 3, well, I mean, we can talk about all of them, but I guess my first question should be, of the 3, which one do you think bounces back the best? And that dog does not want to be on camera. I am watching that dog fight for its life right now.
He does not. I'm trying so hard to pick him up, and he's like, get off of me. Why are you so scared? Anyways, and I can't move my camera. It's attached. Maybe next time I'll get a picture and I'll post it of him. But anyways, I didn't hear anything you asked because I was trying to yank my 80-pound dog up.
Notre Dame, Clemson, Texas. Who's going to bounce back the best of those 3?
I think it's probably going to be Notre Dame. I was leaning Clemson, but I actually think Clemson's schedule down the stretch is harder, especially if Florida State can replicate what they were able to do against Alabama. I believe they obviously get South Carolina toward the end of the year. I think it's rivalry week is the week that they always play them. I want to say they get NC State, SMU's on their schedule, Duke's on their schedule. Georgia Tech in a couple weeks, which you would think may not sound like a tough game, but I thought Haynes King looked really good in that first game, and Georgia Tech has given them issues the past couple years. What was it? I think last year, Thanksgiving weekend, if I'm remembering correctly. Wasn't that Clemson Georgia Tech that went to like 6 or 7 overtimes? And then
Georgia.
Was it Georgia? Okay,
Georgia.
They took Georgia. Yeah. If they took Georgia at overtime, I think they can do that with Clemson. So I actually think Clemson will be harder to bounce back from than Notre Dame. I mean, Notre Dame has a very easy schedule. I don't think that, USC is on there. Obviously, they do have Texas A&M in 2 weeks. I think it's week 3 that they play Texas A&M. That could be a difficult game. I do think that defense is a little bit better than what Miami's is. But then they get Purdue, Arkansas. Boise State does not look good at all. We've not even really talked about Boise State.
I mean, have you considered that USF is just awesome?
Maybe they are. Maybe they've taken after Coach Nace and what he was able to do with them in NCAA 25 or 26. I don't remember.
We found some gems. I'll tell you. Yeah.
But I really don't think that they have a hard schedule. I mean, yeah, they do. Like I said, they get USC later in the year, but USC has to come to South Bend, which I think is, again, not an easy place to go play. So I think Notre Dame is the one, because that's the other thing, too. They don't have to, worry about competing for a conference championship or anything. Even if they lose 2 games, chances are they're probably still in the playoffs. So, I think that they'll be fine overall.
If they lose 2, I think it'll be tight. It'll depend on what some other teams do around them. Because like you said, I mean, what's the other loss going to be to here? I mean, I think Miami's an excusable loss, assuming they don't absolutely fall apart here. But, any score remaining on their schedule outside of maybe USC, if USC is actually good, which, I think the jury's still out. Pretty weak opponent this past weekend. I don't know. I think Texas is the easy answer here, personally. Because I thought Texas was, what qualifier do I want to, or what descriptor do I want to put on here? A decent amount better than Ohio State this weekend.
I don't disagree.
Outside of a handful of plays, which obviously matter ultimately at the end of the game, I thought Texas was a better team.
Yeah.
So, and I think if you played that game 10 times, I actually think Texas wins over probably 6 out of 10. I'm not saying they win 10 out of 10, but I think they win more than half. So, I mean, yes, Texas is in the SEC and all that kind of stuff. Maybe the runway's a little shorter, but I actually think just Arch getting a few more reps in. I think they've got a stable of running backs there. The line looked pretty good, except for in short yardage situations, which is just OSU for whatever reason has just been awesome in the past couple of years. And it's the whole D line's gone from last year, and they were still awesome in those situations. Yeah. So I don't know, new DC, I don't know. They've held up so well in short yardage, especially goal line type stuff. So I just think they're still a complete team. I think they gave OSU fits defensively. They really didn't consistently move the ball at all. They really had 2 sustained drives, and that was it. And even the second one was a 40-yard touchdown pass that was underthrown, and honestly a pretty nice catch by Carnell Tate. So I think Texas is the easy answer here. But I still think all 3 of them can make the playoff. I wouldn't roll any of them out at this point. I thought they all, played fine.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Texas is out of the playoff race at all. I do think that I think
they can lose another game too. I think Notre Dame, I said, might be iffy depending on other teams. I think if Texas loses one more game but wins the rest, I think they're in. So
I agree. And it's saying I don't expect Clemson to lose another game because of how easy their schedule is, but I think the same thing because they still have, I would say, with as weak as the ACC is, they probably still have a shot. I mean, right now they don't have a loss in conference. That's not a conference loss, right? So they're still fine in competing for the ACC championship. And we saw last year, as long as they can win that, they'll likely be in, despite people thinking they were not good. So I think all 3 do have a chance to make it in again. My biggest fear of Texas, again, is just an SEC schedule. I'm pretty sure they have Georgia again this year on that schedule. I don't know exactly what it looks like because I know last year their schedule was really easy, where I would imagine it's not quite as easy this year. So I could see them losing other games, but I don't think
they have Florida and Oklahoma, and I think Oklahoma and Florida are both overrated, for the record, just based on what we saw this weekend. And then after that, they have Georgia in November, and they have Texas A&M to close out the year. But other than that, it's honestly extremely manageable. Kentucky, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, Arkansas. Did I say Kentucky already? Sam Houston, San Jose State, UTEP. I don't think there's any teams that we're going to be oh, wow, that team surprised and was a top 15 team this year. All those teams, I think we kind of know what they're going to be. So,
yeah, I mean, I think that it'll probably come down to that 3-week stretch at the end of the season, right? I mean, yeah, they get a bye week heading into Georgia, but then Arkansas, again, it's at home. So Arkansas coming to Texas, but still that's tough. And then Texas A&M, even though Texas A&M was not a good team last year, that was a close and tough game. So I would not be surprised. Yeah. I would not be surprised if it stays that way.
And that game's at Texas A&M, right? Or no, it's at Texas.
No, it's at Texas.
So,
yeah, it was at Texas A&M last year.
You're right. That helps quite a bit there as well. So yeah, I thought they looked good. Like obviously there were bad things that can be improved on, but and it was not like they put up 40, but I thought they looked fine. So yeah. Talking bounce backs, Matt. Conversely, I think we want to close out the show here. I asked the two of us to pick a player and a team that we are most worried about after week 1. And let's talk team first. And let's not say Bama or UNC because we've already talked about both of those teams.
Yeah.
And how they looked this past week.
Bama was the one that I really wanted to go to, but I'll go. Oh man, that's tough. After we, I'll go with Clemson, who we were just talking about. Again, I mentioned, they don't have a tough schedule down the stretch, sure, and so I do expect them to probably be favored in each of the rest of the remaining games and possibly win all of those. Which, by the way, I don't think I mentioned this on Back to Debbie last night. I think I said Antonio Brown. I meant what's the kid's name? I'm sorry, Antonio Williams, not Antonio Brown. Henry, right? Who's their wide receiver 3? Wesco Moore and
Williams.
His name Tyler Brown. Antonio Williams was hurt in that game. I forgot about that. I mentioned Antonio. I meant Tyler Brown dropped a pass when I was talking about Back to Debbie. But even if Williams is able to come back, like realistically, if you look at their schedule. Clemson's this year. Come on. I pulled up the 2026 schedule. Yeah, I think they beat Troy. I just mentioned with the Georgia Tech. I think they beat Syracuse, North Carolina, Boston College. But look, they get SMU, which, again, I don't know that they're going into this game against LSU, I would have said that their roster, I think, is a lot better than SMU's. I expect them to beat SMU. Would not be surprised if they lose to SMU. Again, we'll see what happens with Florida State. I don't want to put too much on them beating Alabama, but that was an impressive win. Can they do that same thing to Clemson? And then they get South Carolina at the end of the year. They're the team that, again, brought back a lot of players as well. But right now, that offensive line did not look good. And again, they're leaning heavily on a running back who is not an actual running back. And I think if defenses can kind of key in on that, and if they can't get, Ezamume going or Gideon Davidson going at the running back position, I think that they can do to Clemson what teams were able to do to LSU last year and just kind of, hey, we're just going to drop everybody back. You try and beat us. And here's the thing. At least Nussmeier has a rocket attached to his shoulder, so he could force some of those in there. Klubnik is not going to be able to. And again, I mentioned it on College Fantasy tonight, and I think I mentioned it on Back to Debbie. There was a lot of really bad throws from Klubnik in that game. And sure, they may not see a secondary as good as LSU's the rest of the season, but they'll see some that are fairly close to that. That is a team that I'm extremely worried about, again, because they didn't do a lot in the portal, and they're just relying on players that I don't think will be good enough. And if they lose, again, if Antonio Williams is out for I don't know how long he's going to be out, if he's out a majority of the season or misses a couple more games, like I think Clemson could be in some serious trouble.
Sure. I get that. They were not as explosive offensively as I thought they would be.
Yeah.
I didn't think that it would be a shootout per se, but I didn't think it would be a grind fest either, which is kind of what it turned into. So I had a tough time choosing one. I think there's a couple different directions that I was debating going with this. And I ultimately did go with Boise. I considered like Oklahoma State because they really didn't move the ball at all after Haney went down with Flores in there and he's out for the next month. And there were one or two others as well. Washington State was pretty bad. But I'm going to go with Boise. Is it possible that USF is way better than we thought they were? And we didn't think USF was going to be like garbage this year. When we did some conference preview stuff. That's certainly possible, but
yeah.
Like Boise State, like didn't move the ball well at all for a team that generally is built around running the ball and has, as we've talked about, a stable of very strong running backs there. Could not consistently get the run game going. Maddox Madsen looked bad defensively. Like they were just bullied. That was not that was, if I'm a Boise fan, that's pretty discouraging for a team that obviously coming off a playoff berth, not looking terribly out of place in that playoff game, and then still returning a decent amount of the team from last year. I think we talked about this. They had they lose Genty and maybe one or two other pieces, but like generally speaking, they brought back a decent chunk of that team. They looked like just bad, like embarrassingly bad.
Yeah. They did not look like the team at all that made it to the playoffs last year. And that's one of those things I think we've talked about before on this show specifically, is like when you have a season like that, you've got to capitalize on it. And I don't think that they've been doing that either. So it's not looking good for Boise. My player, it's actually tied between two, and it's two quarterbacks that we had, I don't think higher than the services, but fairly close. They were both in like that tier 2 of players that, I think they were both in tier 2. Childs might have been in tier 3, actually. I don't remember.
I'll pull it up while you're talking.
I'm pretty sure Childs was 3, Avery Johnson was 2. But players that we thought could be like sneaky quarterbacks in their class that could kind of make a rise up. Avery Johnson more because of the athletic things. Again, I was very high on Childs as what he was as a passer. Look, we've only gotten one game out of Childs. We've gotten 2 now out of Avery Johnson. Avery just looks like the same player. I've not really seen any improvement out of him whatsoever. I am worried about that. And then Aiden Childs, I think at least right now through one game, it's fair to say the same thing. I've not seen any improvement out of the guy. And it was against Central Michigan. And that was I think Western Michigan. And that is the part that is a little bit disappointing to me, because if you look at Michigan State's schedule, it is extremely easy. The only big boys they have on their schedule this year are Michigan and Penn State. And before we saw what Bryce Underwood was able to do, I was like, Michigan State might be able to pull off the upset there against Michigan, maybe. And if they're able to do that, Michigan State's going to make the playoffs if all they do is have one loss to Penn State. And I still think they have a shot, even if they only lose to Michigan and Penn State, if Michigan ends up being ranked the rest of the season, as they currently are ranked. After what I saw the other night, I know Michigan State, I believe, is ranked 23rd. I don't see any way that they don't lose 4 or 5 games. Again, like Childs just looked like the same player putting the ball in harm's way. He was missing wide open wide receivers. It's a little disappointing for a player that I was really high on. I really, really like to kind of not, same thing as Avery Johnson, see any improvement going into year 2 for him in this off. Well, really it's year 3 in the offense, but year 2 with the Spartans.
That's a good answer. Yeah. I watched like the first half of that game and then kind of turned it off. But yeah, it doesn't seem like he's improved that much. And just Avery Johnson was our last player in tier 2 that year, and Childs was second in tier 3.
3.
So,
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, right in that range. I thought, do I say it?
Yes. Look, I already got us canceled with the dog comment. So whatever you say now is not going to
I didn't think Lagway was that great in this game.
Oh, yeah.
And I know they weren't opening up the playbook at all, and I get that.
Yeah.
But he's a guy that all last year it was like, and I, as someone who had defended him up until pretty recently, it was one of those you had to watch the game because the box score wasn't necessarily showing how well he had played on a week-to-week basis, I think, generally speaking. But I think this was one where the box score and watching him play, just real underwhelming stuff. And the health stuff has been a factor potentially. Like, I'm sure they were just trying to keep him healthy. He barely, they brought Tramel Jones out pretty quick and had him play the rest of the game in this one. I just don't know that the hope is that going into a second year that these guys start finding that extra gear. The game starts slowing down. It starts looking easier for them. I did not see that in this cameo against a pretty bad team. Now, let's get him out there for a full game before I start really passing judgment. But I am getting a little nervous about DJ Lagway.
It's fair. It's very fair. I mean, we talked about it, I think, on College Fantasy tonight, and again, same thing a little bit on Back to Devi with Mike when we recorded with him earlier this week, and just a thing of like, it seems like it's like 15 attempts. It's like, I think in this game he only had 105 yards, but in last season, I think if you go back and look, it's like 180 to like a little over 200 yards passing, couple touchdowns, and that's it. Like, I don't know if it's just Napier's afraid to open up the offense or what's going on, but it's not looked good. It's looked very weird, like in the way that he's kind of come to being somewhat successful at Florida as their starting quarterback.
Yeah, and Evan had asked a little bit ago, and I meant to bring it up when we were talking Notre Dame, and I forgot. He said, "Was CJ Carr the right choice for Notre Dame?" I don't think he was amazing in this game. I thought he was a little better in the end of the third into the fourth quarter, but I also think the Miami got a little conservative there. But I don't know that they would have performed differently or better with Minchie.
Yeah,
overall. So, but I think it was a little bit as I suspected. That I don't know that with how much raving there was about him as a passer, as a freshman there on campus last year, and then a little bit this year. Like, I don't know that he actually elevated this offense from a passing game perspective really at all. I mean, I think Miami for most of the game said, like, we're just going to put 7 dudes in the box, go ahead and beat us. And they don't have any wide receivers that really can consistently win deep either, which is also potentially part of the problem. It's a lot of like underneath guys, which we've talked about before, like Greathouse, Pauling, even like Malachi Fields, I don't really think of as a deep guy. And then, some of these other bit play, Micah Gilbert, whoever else. I don't think they would have performed better. So, like, was he the right choice? I guess, sure.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that he was. I mean, look, we only have, the practice reports and everything to go on. I don't know that. I mean, Marcus Freeman probably has a little bit of rope in the fact that he was in a national championship last year, but I really don't think that they just picked guys. I could be wrong, but I really don't think that he just picked Carr just to pick Carr. I would imagine that they thought he was the best option for the team and did it. I thought that he played really good in the third and fourth quarter of that game. Even if you want to argue Miami got a little conservative, still he brought them back in a game where they didn't really look like they belonged, in my opinion, at least in the first half. And so the fact that they were able to kind of come back in that game, they were right there. Carr drove down the field, gets that rushing touchdown, right? Like, again, I think it's the same thing we kind of have argued with Clemson. Like, granted, Clemson's got much better wide receivers, but like for a long time, they were recruiting like the same player over and over again. I think that's been Notre Dame's problem for a long time now. It's like they just don't have anybody to really help them out at the wide receiver position. And they're not even, in my opinion, doing a good job of like developing those tight ends that they've done in the past, or at least they've had those tight ends to be outlets for the quarterbacks. I'm sorry?
Raridan was solid in this one, I thought.
Sure. But I mean, like, it's not what they've had in the past. Mayer, I forgot who came before Mayer. I don't think he got drafted as high
Tommy
as Mayer
Tremble.
did, but
I think was Tremble. The guy right before. I think
he got drafted in the second round, if I remember correctly. I remember Felix being all excited about that, or maybe it was the third
Felix's
round.
Guy, yeah.
But, I mean, I just feel like they lean so heavily on the run that there's not much there to help out Carr. So, like, I don't know I'm going to put any of that on him. But we'll see more. I mean, again, I actually think the real true test for him, because I think Miami's defense is good. It's not great. I do think Texas A&M has a very good defense. It's very much a, like, bend but don't break defense, despite the fact that they let UTSA put up, like, whatever was 17 points on them. I do think that Mike Elko and the Aggies have a good defense. So I'll be curious to see what Notre Dame looks like. Can't remember if that game's in South Bend or if they're going to College Station for that one. I just remember last year when Mike Elko was yelling at his offensive coordinator to run the effing ball so they could get out of there. So
that game is, let's see here. I have like the schedule. It's at Notre Dame. So,
okay. So, we'll see. It would be a tough road test for the Aggies, but I think that'll be a real true test for CJ Carr.
So here's a take that I guess I'll lob out to you, Matt. I thought in this game it became slightly apparent that Denbrock might only have one pitch.
Oh, that's fair, but it's been very successful for him.
Because they were running CJ Carr.
Yeah.
And they started doing that in the second half, and it made the offense a little more efficient. But CJ Carr is not like actually a very good runner, and like B, like they're going to get him killed doing that because he's not a super physical guy. Like he's not Riley Leonard, like this big, physical guy. Like it's just as the game went on and they kind of got into more of that in the second half, I was like, wow, like this is maybe becoming obvious that Denbrock really can only do one thing. And if the quarterback doesn't match the vision of what he does, there could be some trouble here.
I don't disagree with you. I mean, again, what was my argument for CJ Carr being my flag plant this year is because but the thing is, Denbrock's been so successful doing that. I would not be surprised if Carr is definitely not the quarterback of Riley Leonard, Jaden Daniels, Desmond Ridder. I mean, he's more accurate, I think, than two of those quarterbacks, not more than Jaden Daniels, but more accurate than Desmond Ridder and Riley Leonard. But he's nowhere near the athlete that those three quarterbacks were when it came to running the ball. But he's just been successful everywhere he's gone as an offensive coordinator. I think he'll be able to find a way to figure it out. I don't think Minchie's any more athletic than CJ Carr. So if that's what he's going to do, I mean, as long as
more, but not like on the like he might be. No, he's not. I was gonna say he might be kind of tilted close to Ridder, but no, he's even not. Like he's more athletic than Carr, but not by a lot.
Not by much. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see if he keeps down that road and if it works out, because that was my biggest argument. If you go back to our flag plan episode, that's what I said was this is not a, hey, I think CJ Carr is that talented. This is all because of what I think Mike Denbrock is and what he can do as an offensive coordinator.
So. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for this week's show. Apologies to Kirk. I mean, the dog is just sitting there with his headset on now, so we'll get him rescheduled. We're not doing that this week. Yeah, we can't. So we'll get them rescheduled. Make sure you're checking out everything that we have over at campus2canton.com, and make sure you're joining us for the tailgate every Saturday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern. We kick off player rankings for the week, betting, underdog, you name it, storyline stuff. We talk about it, pick some games before kickoff there at noon Eastern. Yeah, I think that's it. Good night, everybody, and good luck.